Deconverted man here. Oh my word, yes. Okay, so we're gonna look at this video. That's a clip from another video that's much longer. Oh my word, the other video is 24 minutes and 19 seconds. I've never made a video that long. Mine are much longer. Or shorter. Well, maybe I've made a video exactly that long. I don't know. Anyway. So, this guy, I don't know who his name is. He's from the Australian Christian Lobby. So anyways, he's like, hey, here's all these things that atheists can't answer. All these questions. Oh, man, the questions all over the place that people don't have the answers to. And we have the answers. We believe we have the answers. So that gives us the leg up on you pathetic, skeptical-minded atheists who don't have the answers. Our book gives us the answer to this and that question that plagues us so. Okay, well, it doesn't give us all the answers, but it gives us more answers than you have. Yes, there's mystery, but at least we understand why there's mystery. You don't even understand why there's a mystery. And so, because you don't have the answer, that must mean something. That must mean we are right, or that we at least have the answers, and you don't, and that means something. Does that mean, therefore, God, you don't know the answer to this question, therefore, God? You don't know the answer to this question, therefore, I'm right and you're wrong. You don't have the answer for this question, so that must mean something. Something is wrong with your worldview, with your ideas, with your beliefs, with your non-beliefs, because you don't have the answers. That's what's implicit in these sort of questions that can't be answered. It's easy, remarkably easy, to make a question that nobody can answer. It's extremely easy to construct a question that is paradoxical in nature. To load a question in such a way that answering it becomes a giant riddle. And sometimes you can even go deeper. You can make it very complicated to set up such a question, but it's remarkably easy to do so. Yeah. When did you last stop beating your significant other? Or when did you stop robbing the store? Well, I never robbed the store. Well, you didn't answer the question. What is the square root of minus infinity plus 100? Oh, you don't have the answer immediately? That must mean something. What is a billion subtracted by 2? What's the number? Like the number. Say the number. Maybe you know it. Maybe you know what that number is called. I don't have any idea. I'd have to look it up. But that must mean something, that you don't know the answer to that question. What's my real name? Oh, man. I dare say nobody out there, except for a very few people, should know that. I'd be scared if somebody knew. I'd be like, what's my social security card number? Well, I'm sure somebody knows that. But that person isn't you, I dare hope. And if you think you know it, email it to me. And if it's right, I'm going to freak out. But just because you don't know something doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that you're right. It doesn't mean that the other person is wrong. Just because you have an answer to something, or that you think that you have the answer to something, that doesn't mean that you're explanation has greater weight to it, or that your worldview is better or more complete, because the answer itself might not actually be the answer. Well, why are we here? I don't know. Why am I a human and not a cat? Biology? I mean, I could say that, but no. Why are you a human and not a cat? Why weren't you born as a cat? Why is your consciousness not that of a cat? How do you answer that question? Oh, maybe if you're a theist, you might say, well, God ordained that I would be a human. Why? I don't know. You still don't know. So you can always reach a point where you don't know, and that doesn't mean anything. So here's this guy, and he's got this 2-minute, 14-second clip here from this longer talk. And he's going to not present a single question. I want you to note this. Not a single question will he actually present. He's going to complain about the questions that he thinks that atheists can't answer. He is going to admit that theists have questions that they can't answer, but it's going to be brushed away. It's not going to matter. So, let's hear what he has to say, and I'm going to pause it when I have something to say. And I have a lot to say about this, so bear with me. All right. And I see chat, and I'll talk to chat when I'm done, which might be a while.
And this is what the atheist doesn't have. They not only don't have an answer for evil, they not only don't have an answer for suffering, they not only don't have an answer for so many of the things that we're talking about, they don't even have an answer for logic and reason and all these things, because it's just chemical reactions in the brain at the end of the day. I mean, what does it even mean? You become a...
Okay. No. So we don't have an answer for evil. What do you mean by that? Of course I don't know what you mean by that, but of course broadly speaking, there is no tenets of atheism. So each atheist might have their own individual answer. And I dare say even believers of any given religion will have answers that can widely vary. So you could ask, so let's say 100 different religious people of all the same denomination, maybe even the same church, and potentially get different answers. So I'm not sure what the point there is, but at any rate, I can only answer for myself as far as explaining evil. And well, of course, what do you mean by evil? What is evil? Do you mean moral evil? Do you mean, evil as in something that we don't like? I don't know. So I have to guess what he means by it, or I have to use my own idea of what evil is. So my idea of what evil is would either be something against my own personal ethics. If I break my own ethics, then I've done evil. I've gone against my own desires, my own will, my own intent, and that is evil. I knew that before I said this thing that I'm about to say that I'm going to regret saying it, but yet I said it anyways, and that was evil. I would also say, for me, evil would be something that is suffering that could be saved by somebody not being saved. That they sit back and they watch some animal trapped in a bear trap or something, and instead of freeing the animal, they sit down and they watch the animal suffer and die. That would be evil. Quite some time ago, I saw people in during one of the many Iraq wars that we had, and the soldiers had been ordered to shoot dogs that come onto the base because the dogs are wild and they might have rabies or whatever. They just didn't have the facilities to, check every dog and take care of it, etc. Well, instead of shooting the dog, they captured the dog and they took these dogs to the cliff that they had nearby, and they threw them over the side of the cliff, and they laughed as the dog fell to its death. I would consider that evil. The explanation of any of these evils, at least where humans is concerned, that humans do odd things. Emotions cause us to do all sorts of things, and cognitive dissonance and our own brain and sensibility can be warped. Those soldiers were bored, but also desensitized to suffering. They needed some relief. They needed some release. And this was something that they found that they could do that they knew was wrong. And doing it might have actually felt good in that moment. And I'm sure that if you asked them, they wouldn't really know why they had done it. And they'd probably even feel bad that they'd done it. And then they'd feel worse that they felt good about when they did it in the time. Our brains are just weird. But for natural, that is to say, suffering or things where animals or other living creatures, anything just, is suffering without somebody to rescue it, well, sometimes that happens. So, and if there was somebody that could rescue it and didn't, or well, why wouldn't they? Well, there's all sorts of potential reasons. So there's plenty of explanations of evil. That is to say, people are strange animals. Nature is cruel and doesn't care. It is to say, nature doesn't care what happens to the creatures that have sentience, that can feel pain. When the deer gets trapped by a bear and gets killed, when it gets trapped by a bear trap, when it gets stuck in a fence, when it gets stuck in a root of a tree, nature doesn't care that happened. It doesn't care that the deer is suffering and is dying of dehydration and starvation. Nature doesn't care about that because it doesn't have the capacity to care one way or the other. Nature also doesn't know that that's happening. The deer knows, but it doesn't know much other than it is frightened. Maybe it does. I don't know. Who knows? But certainly there's an explanation for that. So the idea that we don't have an answer for evil is completely and utterly false. I have an answer. But let's, again, if I didn't, what would that mean? What would that prove? Nothing. Then he said, we don't have an answer for logic or reason. Well, yes, we do. Both of logic is a system that has been developed by humans over time. I would say Aristotle, but probably somebody before him, had the idea, but he was the one that got famous, so good enough. He started the ball rolling and others improved it along the way. So we have a decent explanation of logic. Reason is something that we do with our brain. So we definitely have an explanation of that. And notice what he says. He said, it's just chemicals in the end. Yes, we reduce it down to any idea down to its component bits. What happens in the brain is chemicals, electrical signals going on in there. You could reduce it down to the molecules and atoms. You could reduce it down further to energy itself, to potentiality, that these energies that are swirling around do so just because that is what they do, and there isn't a further explanation. This is just their nature. This is just how it operates. This is the fundamental aspect of reality, and that's just how it is. There is no why that this electron is spinning one way rather than the other. I suppose if you posited a God, you could say that that God spun the electron one way rather than the other. But why did God spin that electron that way rather than the other way? Why did God bother with electrons at all? So you would still have a mystery, but that's okay. You'd have less mystery, maybe. Our explanation seems better, feels better, so our explanation must be right. That's the implicit underlying idea here.
Become a nihilist pretty quickly. What they don't have is not only they don't have what it even mean. You become a nihilist pretty quickly. What they don't have.
Okay, so you don't have to become a nihilist. So, and here's the weird thing of this. This is kind of an appeal to consequence embedded. So he's like, you consider all these and you don't have any answers. So you would then therefore become a nihilist very quickly. Let's play that again.
Because it's just chemical reactions in the brain at the end of the day. I mean, what does it even mean? You become a nihilist pretty quickly. What?
So that was very quick. But so the idea is that just that because you can reduce everything down to, these mechanical things, that they don't mean anything deeper, therefore you're going to become a nihilist. Let's say that was true. Let's say that everybody that accepted reality, whatever reality might be, became a nihilist. Would that make reality false? No. Would everybody that got, if when we taught that koalas eat whatever they eat, because I can't think of it now. My brain shut down for a moment. Eucalyptus leaves. There we go. Thank you, brain. That they eat that. If we taught that, and as a result, all the people we taught it to went for like a week. Like they wouldn't shut up for like a week. They kept going all week long. That would be annoying and really frustrating. But it wouldn't negate the truth of the statement. The consequence of learning X doesn't negate X. Oh no, you're going to become a nihilist, even if true, doesn't negate the fact of the matter. And what's interesting to note is you might not become a nihilist. What then? So I'm not a nihilist. So did I screw up in my skepticism somehow that I'm not a nihilist? How does he explain that? So these counterexamples, of course, you might become a nihilist. Don't know. Therefore, don't believe it. Because if you believe it, or you think it's true, and it is true, but if you then nihilist, oh no!
What they don't have is not only they don't have the answers, but they don't have any meaning. That's interesting.
Oh no! I don't have any meaning. Oh, the horror! Of course, I have meaning. I have plenty of meaning. Both, I have subjective meaning, and I do have objective meaning. What is the objective meaning? Well, you could say it's to produce life. That's an objective meaning. Might not be the one you want, but it's there. That's the nature's thing. There's probably other ones I can't think of right now, but it's out there. But even if it's the case that I don't ultimately have meaning, who cares? Why does that matter? Why would that make it false or untrue, or what would that mean? It's just an appeal to consequence. And isn't it better to give myself meaning than to have it dictated to me by some book or some person? I could say, hey, you. Yeah, you. Yeah. Your meaning is to tighten that nut at the corner of 5th and Main. There's a nut that's loose. Your meaning is to go tighten it. You go down, you find the nut, and you tighten it. Well, that's it. That was your meaning. Well, now what? You die? I mean, no, you'd have to give yourself additional meaning. But again, it's just nothing more than an appeal to consequence.
Interesting to me that for a book which is so roundly criticized as unreliable, fanciful, and irrelevant by each of these deconverters, it surely explains our spiritual condition pretty well.
Now, because we know he's a Christian, he's talking about the Bible. To him and believers of this particular religion, it explains the spiritual condition well. But to believers of some other religion, it doesn't. Of course, I don't know that there is a spiritual condition in the first place to explain. And I don't know, and I don't think that your book explains it well or at all. There's many things you can find that you can give meaning to, but you can do that with just about anything that's written, or any spoken word or movie or story. You can infer all sorts of ideas from things. So that doesn't mean it's true. Bleep, if you read my silly Lobsterist, that totally wasn't me writing it. It was totally the Lobster that wrote it. If you read that, you could infer all sorts of things from it. That doesn't make it true. It is true, but you got to read it to understand. If you don't believe it's true, then you didn't read it. Yeah. That's it. Okay.
God's existence as Father, Son, and Spirit. And you say, well, how? Well, if you knew the answer to that and those other sort of deeper mysteries of God's the nature of his being, well, you would be God. Obviously, that's a mystery. So it's a mystery, but we know why it's a mystery.
Wait. So mystery is bad unless you know why it's a mystery? How does that work?
Another one would be free will and sovereignty. Both are true. You say, well, how on earth is that? Well, good question. Ultimately, there's a sense in which it's a mystery. It's not that it's just some arbitrary mystery. We see why it's a mystery. Words like predestining and all that kind of stuff. So, of course, this is going to be one of the mysteries. There are other mysteries that are just clearly not fully explained to us. Suffering. That's a mystery. Why did God choose to do it that way? I don't know. Also, the origin of evil is a great mystery. This is one I genuinely blows my mind. God didn't make evil, and yet evil's here. How does that even happen? He's not responsible for it, but it's real. What's going on? There are mysteries. There is the unknown. More importantly, there's the unknowable, because God doesn't exist. They're not.
I love that. I love that edit. That is brilliant edit. That is a brilliant edit. Yeah, because God doesn't exist, and he just edits out. Good job there, man. Good job. Obviously, this is heavily edited. This clip is a critique of this guy by simply, showcasing what the guy said. But I'm critiquing it further, even though this is a pretty darn. If you're not familiar with digital Gnosis, by the way, it's pretty much somewhat well, it's all over the place. It's as far as things, but it's certainly not pro theist, I would dare say. But so that's just, I love that. That's great.
Even happened. He's not responsible for it, but it's real. What's going on? There are mysteries. There is the unknown. More importantly, there's the unknowable, because God doesn't exist. They not only don't have an answer for evil, they not only don't have an answer for suffering, they not only don't have an answer for so many of the things that we're talking about, they don't even have an answer for logic and reason and all these things.
Okay, well, that's the end of the clip there. Oh, I love that edit. Brilliant edit. Well done. I got to give a thumb up there to Digital Gnosis. Good. I'm not saying that word right. You know, I know that I'm not saying that word right, and I don't care because I'm nihilist about the word. How do you say this word? I don't know. Anyways, so check out his channel, and you know, if you want, whatever, poke at some of his stuff, and just comment Lobster on a random video of his. That will confuse him. So you could do that. Yeah, just do that. Don't explain why. You know. Okay, so but yeah, this of course highlights that the apologetic theistic routine. You don't know the answer to this. You don't understand this. You can't explain that. Therefore, God. You don't know this. Therefore, God. You can't, you can't say this. You don't know, so therefore, God. And on it goes. And this is how it happens so many times. See if I can share this example or not. I don't know if this will work. Let's see. It's going to be really tiny. Let's see if I can make it bigger. Is this on my video? Yes, it's on my own video, so I can make it bigger. Never mind. I'm being stupid. Oh, dear. Okay. So this Tyler, you might have seen this guy around. He gets around. I've seen his name before. Excuse me for a moment. Okay. So he starts with this complaint. Oopsie. Where is it? That saying, I'm not convinced it's not an argument. Well, of course it's not. Nobody ever said that it was. And he says he finds it strange that atheists are almost never able to come up with their own arguments, which, I mean, I have plenty of arguments. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but okay. For example, explain how DNA could exist without intelligent designer. Oh, my word, there's so much wrong with this statement. So much wrong. So many things wrong with this statement. How many fallacies? Let's play the game. How many fallacies can you put into a single statement? Shall we? Shifting burden of proof, pre-assuming your conclusion, loaded question, appeal to ignorance, appeal to personal incredulity, appeal to the divine, appeal to mystery. I mean, the list goes on and on. But this is kind of what I'm talking about. Now, not all theists do this. Don't get me wrong. But this is very, I don't know. I don't want to say common, but it's just, I do see it and hear it quite often. You can't explain this. How do you explain this? How does this work? I don't understand. Well, look, DNA and RNA have an explanation for them in natural biology. And it's complicated, but you can actually learn that stuff. It's interesting, he's like, look, I'm not saying you need to disprove this, but he kind of is. He said, well, what's your argument? I don't need an argument. The evidence is there. We know how DNA works. And even if we didn't know it, that doesn't mean anything. You don't get it. You want it to mean more than it means. Let's see. Okay, so he talks about a shovel. Now, there's something I'm doing here. I'm in the middle of doing it. I said, okay, you want a shovel. You want an intelligent designer. Let's go with this. Let's go down that rabbit hole. If the shovel breaks and it needs to be fed all the time, would it be a good... What would you infer about the designer? What could you infer about the maker of a shovel? Because shovels break. So what would you say about it? What would you have to say about it? So he doesn't answer that question. Who's not surprised about this? Well, okay, to be fair, he's responding to another person, but... And of course, this leads into an infinite paradox. The shovel requires an intelligent designer, so obviously a human being, which is 1 billion times more complex than a shovel, requires an intelligent designer, which would then be 1 billion times more complex than the human being. Thus, it would need a designer, but that's okay. This intelligent being isn't going to need a designer because of reasons. The shovel breaks because the designer of it isn't perfect. If we were perfect, we could develop perfect shovels that would never break. In fact, we can develop something better than a shovel to do the same job if we were perfect. But we're not. And our materials are not. Well, certainly we could design a shovel that it breaking would require such a tremendous effort that it wouldn't break in somebody's lifetime or something like that. We could make the thing pretty darn tough. You stick it under one of those hydraulic presses, and I don't know if that's breaking it, but you'd certainly flatten it. I mean, you can, if you do enough to throw it into a lava pit. I mean, you're gonna find a way to destroy the thing, if not break it, depending on what you mean by break. But nonetheless, if we could design it in such a way that it is impervious to destruction, that would be amazing. But we would need to know a whole hell of a lot more than we do now, and our materials would have to be, well, something that they aren't. But I can imagine such a scenario. And yet we're told that this so-called intelligent being that made all of this, made DNA, etc., whatever, did this crappy-ass build. My God, DNA is flawed. Joke and pun intended. Smart humans, scientists, geneticists, are doing this thing with CRISPR. And I'm not the one to talk about it because I don't know hardly anything about it. But nonetheless, they are using CRISPR to try to figure out how to teach DNA to build itself up so that it won't replicate flaws anymore. There's been a number of articles about this. So, if you want a particular one, I can find one for you. Or you can look for yourself, or you could just believe me, or you could be skeptical of what I'm saying. In any case, to my understanding, this would make it so that DNA could copy itself indefinitely without ever having errors. If we could do that, that would mean that life would not break down on a genetic level. We could de-age humans and other animals. We could make them younger and keep them at that age indefinitely. And maybe there would be other problems that would come up, but that would be one problem solved. We can do that, but the designer of us couldn't make it that way already built into the system. Why not? Supposedly, this grand, intelligent designer, at least from the Christian perspective, wants a relationship with us, and yet, when I say, "Hi, God," I don't hear anything at all. Nothing. I hear silence. I hear the sounds that are already in my room to hear. I can go outside and I hear the sounds of whatever's outside, and I say, "Hey, God, how's it going?" Nothing. But if I contacted any one of my many friends here on YouTube that had a speaker and a microphone, well, I suppose the microphone's the important part. Can't hear me without earphones or a speaker, but nonetheless, and I said, "Hey, how's it going?" They're probably going to say hi back. A human can do more than this designer of us that supposedly also wants a relationship with us. I'm sorry. Not sorry. But that is something that doesn't make sense. And even though it doesn't make sense, that doesn't make it untrue, but it just breaks down, logically speaking. You posit a thing that wants a relationship with me, but yet will not do what any other being would do that wants a relationship with me. That doesn't work for me. I can't, well, I suppose I could try to rationalize that. Before going live with this particular video, I was actually going to have a video that I was going to call, "Can you stop believing in God?" Or "Do you want to not believe in God?" And my idea was going to be to challenge those that believe in God to try not to believe in God for a while. Because I'd seen this thing about Christians were talking to amongst themselves about doubts. And what can you do to shore up your doubts so that you can maintain your faith? And I said, don't let your doubt seep through you so that you will become a skeptic. I'm okay with doubts. It's fine. And the great thing about being a skeptic is I don't have to worry about any doubts shattering my ideas, because that means I learned something new. And that's a good thing. It's not bad. There isn't any belief that I hold on to so dearly that it cannot be challenged. And I hope that that's the same with you. But of course, we're all human. And so, well, I'm part lobster. But at any rate, we're mostly human. Except for you. You're a robot. You know who you are. And the robot's like, "No, I'm not." So we are not above this. We're not immune to having something that we hold dear. And maybe we don't even know it. Maybe we're not aware of it. But we have to be willing and able to challenge everything that we think is true and that we hold to be most dear. Because if we're not, well, I don't know. I don't want to put an appeal to consequence there at the end, but it just seems like if we're not able or willing to do that, it can lead to problems. And maybe that's okay, or maybe not. I don't know. It's okay when I commit logical fallacies, because I'm special and I can do that. I'm allowed. I don't know. Anyways, all right. Now I went off the rails here. Okay, so let's talk about what chat said. So we're done now. Done with the video. So for those of you watching after this is a thing, you can ignore this part because I'll be responding to chat. And sometimes chat shows up on YouTube and sometimes it doesn't. Good friend Yin Yang Mountain. With regards to questions from theists, simply ask, how do my views influence the fidelity of your personal God claims? Right, exactly. And your burden of proof to demonstrate that either your specifically defined God or some asserted holy text is what you claim it is. So my disbelief has nothing to do with your belief. Correct. Yes, exactly. We have to answer the question of what you mean by evil. Everyone has their own idea. That's why I fleshed out mine, but nonetheless, oh well. Evil is a question for the church and not the non-believers. Why? Let's see. Right, exactly. Let's see. Without the laws of logic, there would no be stop the illogical from occurring. Therefore, it seems it's not impossible. Logic is just what's known as brute fact allows existence. Right? Yeah. Of course, there's debates in non-classical logic about some of the laws, but I think that is more of a problem of natural language than anything else. I recently watched or listened to a debate on the law of identity. It was pretty interesting. At least I thought so. And it did seem that ultimately it's a matter of nuance and perspective, and maybe we could word it a bit better than we have. I really view that, these things can be challenged, but at some point you have to go, well, okay, I think we've exhausted, we've made it as precise as we can. Okay, there's mainly the gnomes are coming from gnomesis. Gnome. Yeah, it's gnome. See, that G screws me up every time. Gnome is gnome, I know that. And then gnosis is, but then why G? Why? Why is G there? Stupid. If you wanted to believe a God existed, but there was no evidence. Oh, that's a response to this question. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is it possible that my brain or your brain can, get itself to a place where it believed in whatever, even though there wasn't evidence for it? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I wouldn't want to try it like as an experiment, like for the next year, say, let's say that the deconverted man's a lobster, and like see if like after that year of every day you wake up and you say deconverted man's a lobster, and before you go to bed you say deconverted man's lobster every day for the next year, and then come back and be like, okay, deconverted man is not a lobster. Like, would your brain like say no, deconverted man is a lobster, like because you convinced yourself that I was? I don't know. You might break your brain doing it, so I'm not going to experiment, but you can. Go ahead. Let me know your results. I'm going to be like, deconverted man's a lobster. Everybody's going to be posting that next year. Nothing but that. It's like, you're lying. You're not a human. Get that face off my screen. You're a lobster. They'll just roll with it. I'm like, yeah, sure I am. I don't care. Anyways. Hi, everybody. Yes. Let's see. Stop believing in human kindness by joining Twitter. Yeah, I'm thinking of quitting Twitter. I really am. Can you stop believing in what you believe? That is what I wanted to ask at first, but I thought that this would be more fun. And so this is what I did. But I think the other one would be a good topic to explore as well. I have a project I'm supposed to be doing, but I did this instead because I'm anyways, but I'm gonna do it. Even if it kills me, I'm gonna do the thing that I'm supposed to do. There we go. See, Nerdy Rodent believes me. I knew somebody would eventually if I kept trying. There we go. Our terms and conditions make it that non-humans can't use YouTube. All right. That's all I've got. Thanks, everybody, for your comments in the chat. And I will request for those in chat and those watching that after this is a video, give it a couple moments. Sometimes it's real quick. Sometimes it takes a minute. But refresh the actual video a few times, And then once it's an actual video that you can leave a comment on it. Doing so will help YouTube to know that I'm a thing that should be noticed, and then we'll do something so that my channel gets noticed more. Now, I don't really care in a way, but I kind of do. So if you do that, I will like you. I already probably do like you, but I'll like you a little bit more. But if you don't, that's fine. Whatever. I don't care. It's just something I feel like saying sometimes, and sometimes I don't. Hit the bell and blah, 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 blah. All that. Why do we say this? That that's a thing you should do. I shouldn't have to say it every time. But all these big channels say it. So I don't know. But if all the big channels committed suicide, then I would be big. So I wouldn't commit suicide because they'd be dead. Now, they'd still be big. Who am I kidding? What is this rant about? What's the meaning of all this? How do I make sense? What should I do? I know what I should do. I should hit the button, shouldn't I? Yeah, you're like, what, deconverted man, why are you still talking? Hit the damn button. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can hit the end broadcast button anytime I want. You can't make me hit the end broadcast button. I'll do